Good afternoon, and thanks for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva. If there's one garden chore that doesn't benefit from procrastination, it's dividing perennials. To be honest, part of my resistance is I worry I'm going to kill whatever I set out to divide. So when our garden guru, Julie Parker-Dickerson, told me she'd show me how it's done, I was still anxious but willing to try, or at least watch and learn from an expert. Here's Julie.
Perennial division not only keeps our gardens healthy, they also we can also share plants with our friends and family. We're going to be looking at some non-native plants today, or non-contributors, that add color and vibrancy to our gardens, while also focusing on some native plants that are contributors. And those plants provide habitat for caterpillars and other wildlife. Before we get to dividing in the garden, let's look at some different kinds of root systems to make sure we know exactly what kind of plants we're dealing with. So I'm going to look at some fibrous root systems to start. This is a catmint or nepeta. I love this plant for color all season. This is a non-native plant, so it will contribute in the way that it'll give nectar and pollen to insects and generalist bees. So when I pop this guy out, of course, I'm going to squeeze my pot, and then I'm going to shake this out a little bit. And what you're going to see are these great fibrous root systems. Now this is a little bit pot bound. So when we're having a look at this root system, what you're going to notice is that there's many side rootlets. There's no taproot here. So it's really branching off in different directions. Now before I put this in the ground, I'm going to take this great tool. If you don't have a hori-hori knife, this is a great one to have in your collection. And I'm actually going to cut off the bottom. One thing I've also done is made some lines on the sides here just to break up that root system to make sure that it gets a good start. The next plant that we're going to look at is Achillea. Now this is a native plant. A really great one. Again, a fibrous root system. So no taproot to sever here. So no main line to get rid of. And again, this is a little bit pot bound, but not as much as the catmint. So you can cut this right off with your serrated edge of your hori-hori knife, or using a shovel like a root slayer, or even just your general spade. I'm also going to cut lines on the sides when I pop this in the ground. Now for divisions, this is going to be pretty easy. I'm going to wait a couple of years before I share this with a friend. But when I do share it, I'm going to cut it right in half. And when I do that in the ground, I'm going to take a shovel, like my spade here, and use that tip right and cut it right down the middle. You can even divide it into threes. The next plant that I'm going to look at has a taproot, and this is the hardest plant to share. A taproot is found in most of our native plants. So when you're dividing a plant with a taproot, what you really have to wait for is for it to plant itself via seed, or sometimes it does have a fibrous root system that branches off from that taproot. So this is particularly tricky. This is a Baptisia australis. This Baptisia is such a great big bush. It's such a beautiful plant, and it comes in a lot of different varieties. Now this native plant, when I pop this out, so you're going to see some of these tubes here at the bottom. So you can see it right here. This is a great way to see it. So you can see these little tubes here, and they're going to be reaching deep down into the ground to pull up the water and nutrients that it needs to survive. But this kind of plant is really tough to divide. And there's a lot of them out there like this that are native to our region. The last plant we'll look at, you're going to be familiar with. This is a blue flag iris. This is our native iris. You might be familiar with some bearded iris as well, often blooming in the early spring. When I pop this out, you're going to notice that there's rhizomes. So these rhizomes here, you can see all down here, these are kind of tuberous here at the bottom, but this plant is going to be surfacing at the top, this is where you're going to find most of those rhizomes. And you're just going to be able to break this apart pretty easily. Again, using any one of these tools. But you do want to be careful with this one a little bit more so you don't sever it up. You want to make sure they're in clumps when you're dividing them. We're at the glass greenhouse at Horsford, and they have this beautiful perennial border. And today we're going to practice dividing perennials with Chloe Graham-Frock, our perennial manager here at Horsford Nursery.
Hi Julie, I'm really happy to be here with you today. We're going to talk about something that's really awesome. It's a Helianthus lemon queen. Great plant, but the one thing is that it spreads like crazy, and if you don't stay on top of dividing it, then it can get kind of out of control and then be really difficult to remove it after it's established. So we're going to show you that.
This plant blooms in the fall, right?
Yes, it is a fall blooming perennial, beautiful yellow flowers, gets really tall and amazing. So this is the perfect time to divide it so that it has enough of a root system that you're not going to give it a huge shock by dividing it, but it has a long enough time to recover that you could still potentially get those flowers.
That's amazing. And I hear that this plant is actually a favorite of a specialist native bee. So I'm glad that we're working on this today. And this also comes back every year, right? So it's a sunflower that comes back every year. So Helianthus,
yes.
right?
Perennial sunflower.
Okay.
So if you're a big fan of sunflowers, but you don't want to have to do the maintenance of putting new ones in every year, then this is a great option for you.
That's awesome. So what's the first thing we need to do in order to divide this? Because this looks like just a big clump to me.
It does. So what you'd want to do first is you want to choose which section that you're gonna work from to divide it. The easiest way to do that is sort of find which section it looks like separates it, because this is probably about 3 separate plants here. So you want to do that, and then you want to cut off the tops of the plants, probably about halfway down. You want to cut off that vegetation so that you have a little bit more space to work with and you have a better sight on where you're going to divide. And that also gives the plant an opportunity to put all of that energy into rooting once you transplant it, instead of putting all its energy into growing up that top and to try and photosynthesize.
Okay, so for this job, we're going to need pruners. And I noticed that you have a pitchfork. So can I hand you some pruners?
Absolutely.
And we can get started on this?
Of course.
Awesome.
So you want to try and cut right above a leaf section usually. You still want to leave them those leaves to photosynthesize, but we want to make it a little easier for ourselves and put a little less stress on the plant.
And now when you've chopped down so much of this plant, and I'm starting to see the big difference here between the mature growing plant and what we have here. So now is it time to get our pitchfork out?
Yep, now would be the time. So you can see, if you can see right in here, Julie, where these stems are. So that's from our probably either our last division or overwintered, and then these have grown up from those stems and made this new vegetation.
All right, so I'm not going to worry that I see some stems that don't look so great down there.
Right.
I'm just going to put in my pitchfork right around here.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And I really love the pitchfork because then you have a little bit more space so that you're not chopping through the roots like you do with a typical shovel. Great. You're able to sort of comb it out, and you have less of a chance of breaking that nice root system.
Excellent. So pitchforks with native plants that have that combination taproot and fibrous root system.
Yes.
Awesome. That's such a great reminder. All right, so when I hop on this pitchfork, do you want me to do it, or do you want to do it?
Do it.
Okay, I'll get it started. Oh, I can feel it kind of moving already.
Yep.
I want to be careful of this Veronicastrum virginicum. I know that's an endangered plant here in Vermont, so I want to be really safe. And these will bounce back, right? These ones next to it?
They'll be okay. This is a really hardy plant.
Okay.
And you know, when you're dividing it, it really is tough to not have a little bit of damage, but
all right.
But they're hardy enough, they'll be okay.
So I'm starting to see some of the roots, the fibrous roots come up there. Are we getting close?
We're getting close.
Awesome.
You want to kind of go on.
I'm going to give you the pitchfork and have you show us how you would do it.
So you want to go on each side of it so that you can really get it out, loosen it up on all ends of it.
Okay.
Sometimes you might have to readjust where you go in because there's rocks.
Yep.
Or if you're hitting a big root there, because these can kind of turn to cement if you let them go for too long. I think I might just have you do one more on this
One more on
side.
that side, you got it.
All right.
Thank you. It's like a two-person job. It's like you have to invite your friend over, and then you two can work on getting the perennials out of the ground together.
Right? What a nice activity to do.
Woo! Woo. I think we're coming along here. Ooh, so close. Yes, I see that now. That's awesome. How satisfying.
Right?
Look at that. Yeah, that's such a healthy plant.
Now you have probably up to at least like 8 plants in here. You want to do a good section of each of them, but you can get quite a few out of this and either plant it around in your garden somewhere else, or like Julie said, give it to a friend.
We've been dividing perennials at Horsford's. Dividing isn't always easy. It makes some strange, loud sounds, and some plant roots run deeper than others. So we have to learn a little bit before we really start dividing. There's also some really important things to remember. We need some good soil, some pots, water, and some really good tools to make that division possible. So next time you're in the garden and you're looking to divide, make sure you do your homework. One of the things that you can do is get a book. Alan Armitage, professor in Georgia, has some really great literature about native plants and a whole host of your non-contributors or your non-native plants. So herbaceous perennial plants, this Bible of plants, is an amazing way to find out, does your plant have a fibrous root structure? Does it have a taproot? Does it have a rhizome? And what is the best way to propagate that plant so you can give it to the people you love? Thanks for joining me at Horsford Nursery today, and happy dividing.
Thank you, Julie. I hope our viewers are encouraged as I am to start dividing. Before I split, I want to thank the hardworking crew here at WCAX. I'm Keith Silva. This is Across the Fence. Thanks for being part of our family.